So I hope everyone is fine. Sorry, everyone is able to see the screen. Right. So today we are going to start working with a few examples with our Apex code. Right. The other day we learned the basics of Apex. We learned how to define the data types and all. Now we are going to learn how do we use that. Okay. And the first thing that we are going to do with our Apex is different ways of using Apex. Now, when you're writing program, you can call it from several different places, right, in Salesforce. But the one which we are going to talk now is a Visualforce controller. You can use Apex without a Visualforce controller as well, but that's something which we will discuss a little later after a few more sessions. So we will talk about Visualforce controller now. So so far we have been working with standard controller, and what we understand by now is that a standard controller is predefined, and this standard controller basically is it's a class which is defined by Salesforce, and all that we have to do is we just have to call the methods and the class as a standard controller. That's it. We never need to define the program. Now we are going to use a custom controller. Custom controller is where you have to write the program. You are the one who will be writing the program, right? So how do you write the program? With the help of Apex. All right, so it's a very simple thing that we have to do. We'll create a class, okay, and inside the class we will define our methods, and this class will be called on the on the Visualforce page as a custom controller. Got it? So you create a class and then you call the class as a custom controller on the Visualforce page. That's it. Okay. And whatever program you want to write, whatever methods you want to write needs to be written inside the class. Now this class needs to be called on the Visualforce page. All right. So let's see how it works. One quick moment. Let me log in into Salesforce. Okay. So to create a class, all that you have to do is you just have to go to setup, develop Apex classes. This way you go and define an Apex class. Click on new. Okay. Syntax is pretty simple. You just will write public class name, whatever you want to keep the class name, class 1, whatever. So this class name, this is the keyword, and I'll tell you why we are defining it as public. Okay. Now define a variable here, string s equals so some value in the string. Now I'll define a method. Okay, before that, before we define method. Okay, so what I've done, I've created a class, and inside the class I've defined a variable. Fine. So string variable is pretty simple. You just have to define a variable, right? Uh, in the first line, what we have done, we have defined a class. Okay. So use the keyword class and use the name of the class. Name of the class can be anything, A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, whatever you want. So I can call it class A. Okay. And then why do we use public? Any class which needs to be referenced outside needs to be defined as a public class. Okay. So there will be private classes and there will be public classes. Okay. Any class which needs to be referenced outside needs to be defined as a public class. Okay. Now, since I'm going to call this class on a Visualforce page, I have to define it as a public class. So all the classes basically which you are going to define as a custom controller, which you are going to use as a custom controller, those classes always need to be defined as public because they will always be used, always be called from the Visualforce page. So the simple logic is all your Visualforce controller classes are going to be public. Okay. Okay. Now, what I'm trying to do here with this example is I'm trying to display this message on the Visualforce page. That's my simple intention. I have a variable. I want to display this variable on the Visualforce page. That's all I want to do. But I cannot call this variable directly on the Visualforce page because a variable is something which is recognized only within the program. You cannot call the variable outside the program. Okay. So, if variable cannot be called outside the program, then what can be called outside the program? A method. So what we have to do, we have to write a method which will return the value of this variable. So I have to create a method, and on calling that method, I should return the value of this variable. That's what we need to do, right? So we have to define one method here. So before we define a method, let me tell you about a few things. Okay. Um, Okay, so when you're defining a method, there will be two types of methods based on the return type. Okay, we'll have to see whether our method will return something or it will not return something. Okay, so whenever you are defining a method, your method may or may not return some value. Like if I'm defining a method to, if I've written a method which will get me the name of the account which has maximum revenue. Okay, you define a method to fetch the name of the account which gives you maximum revenue. In this case, you are expecting a result, you are expecting a name, correct? So this is a method which will return some value. On the other hand, if I am defining a method which will delete few records or which will send some emails, that's it. In this case, I'm not expecting any return value. I just want it to perform some action and that's it, right? So your methods may or may not return anything. So there are basically two types of methods. Two types of methods based on return value. One is void method, another is non-void method. What exactly is the void method going to do? It will not return anything. And what a non-void method does, it returns some value. Okay. So void methods are usually defined like public void method name, whatever method name. Okay, because they do not return anything, so they are void methods. You define them like this. Non-void methods needs to be defined like public return value data type, then method name. Correct. So a method which will return some value will be a non-void method, and there instead of void you should use the return value data type. So if the method is going to return a string, you should write public string. If it is going to return integer, you should write public integer. Correct. So you have to define the data type of the return value. Got it. So in this case, what are we trying to do? We are trying to return the value of this string. So if I have to define a method, the method name has to be public string get one return s. Right. So why I have defined this method as public? Because I need to call this method from the Visualforce page. Simple logic. What is this? Why I have defined it as string? Because this method is a non-void method. It's going to return a value. What value is going to return? S. What is the data type of S? String. That's it. All right. Okay. Now let's understand this part. What is this get m1? This is the name of the method. Okay. Now we have three types of methods based on utility. Okay. How you want to use a method, based on that we have three types of methods. There are two different types based on the return values. One is void, one is non-void. So your method can be a void or non-void. Now, what do you want to do with that method? Based on that, there are three types of method. Okay. First one is a get method. Second is a set method. Third is an action method. Okay. So what is this get method? What is this set method? And what is action method? So if you think of a Visualforce page or any page, and if I have the program here, so let's say this is my controller and this is the page. Okay. So a get method can get the value from the controller to the page. Okay, so get method is more like an output kind of an operation. If you have a value, if you have a variable, if you have something stored in the controller, you want to display it on the page, you use a get method. So get method is usually used for getting the values on the page. Correct? So that's what a get method is going to do. A set method can take the value from the page and pass it on to the controller. That's what a set method does. It can take a value from the page and put it back into the controller. Okay, so set method is doing exactly the reverse of get method. Get method is used for displaying some value on the page. Set method is used for taking the values and passing it on to the controller, right? Action method can be used for doing everything else. Like you want to move from one page to other page. Okay, you want to refresh the same page. You want to delete some records. You want to create some records. So that sort of things can be taken care of using the action method. Okay, and get method and set method can be used for input output kind of thing. So your Get method will be used for taking the values from the controller to the Visualforce page. Set method will be used for taking the values from the page to the controller. Right? Now, one of you please tell me in this example what I'm trying to do, which method you think I should be using in this particular example. I want to display this value on the Visualforce page. Which method should we use?
Get method.
Get method. Yes. So that's the reason why I have used a get method. Now, to define a get method, it's pretty simple. If you're using a get method, because the system needs to understand whether it's a get or a set method. So we need to define it as a keyword. So get keyword needs to be defined just to make sure that the Visualforce page understands that this is a get method. So for that reason, this get keyword has been used. Get m1 is the method name. Get keyword you have to prefix it with your method name. That's it. Now if you call this method, this is the method. If you call this method, it's going to return s. How do we call this on the Visualforce page? First of all, let's save this and let's now look how do we call this on the Visualforce page. It's going to be very simple. Just create the Visualforce page the way we have been doing. Epics we okay. Okay, just define the page. Okay, first of all, controller is going to be the name of the class. Okay, so name of class is A. So here, first of all, you'll have to reference the controller on the Visualforce page so that you can have this thing. Controller equals A. So the connection has been set between this Visualforce page and the controller and the class that you've created. Correct? So this part is actually setting the connection between your Visualforce page and the class. Now inside the class, wherever you want, you can call the methods from that class. Now, method name is m1, right? What do you think we will get to see when I call m1? Anyone? What will we see when we call m1 on the Visualforce page? It will return,
We are learning.
yeah. So it will return s, value of s is this. So ideally this will be displayed on your page when you call the method m1. Correct? Let's go. We define the method m1, we save it, and yeah, right. So that's how it is defined. That's how your methods are defined. Same way, let me define an integer here. Integer I equals 50. Now what I want to do is I want to display this integer value on the Visualforce page. I want you guys to type in the method for this. Write the method for this and put it in the chat window quickly. So I have to write a method to display the value of this integer on the Visualforce page. Can we quickly write it in the chat window? Fast. Right. So most of you are correct. It should be public, then integer, then because it's a get method name can be anything. Now just return I. That's it. Now how do you call it? You just have to call M2 on the Visualforce page. Put a line break and say M2 on the Visualforce page. That's it. Got it? So this is how you actually define a method and then you use it on the Visualforce page. Call that on the Visualforce get method. All right. Okay. So we are going to do one more example, and this time I'll create another class. So we have understood, how we are using a get method. We are just calling the get method on the Visualforce page to display the value of the variables, right? So this is one requirement that you will have very commonly, because when you are creating a Visualforce page, you want to display some data, some value there, right? And get method is the one which is going to be used for doing that, right? So we'll do one more example. In this example, let's deal with list of records. So I define a class. Let's say I want to display a list of accounts on the Visualforce page. How do I do that? Through a custom controller? It's pretty simple. All that you will need to do is you will just define public class, name whatever you want to name the class. Okay. So first of all, we'll need to define a variable for list of account. Name it whatever you want, and then define the query to fetch the values. Select name, type, interest, phone from account. Correct. So this is done. Now what you have to do here is you just have to go ahead and define public. Okay, what will be the return data type of the return value here? I want to define a method to return this list. So what should I write here after public? Now this is my variable list. This is what I want to return. So in the get method, what should be the return value data type?
String.
String. String.
Yeah. Mm, return string.
Return value is what? List, right? This is what I want to return. What is the data type of this?
Yeah, yeah. Name of the variable.
What is the data type of this variable? We don't have to use any logic here. Just pick this value. This is data type, right? List of account is itself is a data type, correct?
Long,
Sorry,
long,
wrong.
long, Long.
Okay, long. No, this is the data type. Okay, okay. Let's go to the previous example. Uh,
Want to be integer?
See, this is very simple logic. We don't even have to use any logic. We just have to, what do you say, go with what you have written in the variable, right? When you are trying to return s, what is the return type that you have defined? String. How do you get that? Right? So wherever the variable is
Yes.
defined, so it's just a matching game. It's nothing where you need to use logic. Simple. If you are not able to understand, just use this logic. Correct. For returning integer I take it integer. For string s, I take it as string. Microphones on mute, please, everyone. Now, how do you do this in this case? So when I want to return this value, then what should be written here? What is the return data
Create
type?
list.
list account. We have to define list account.
Yes, as simple as that. Fine. So here the return
It's a S object, so no, we no need to define like integer or because of S object we writing as it
S
is
object
list
is the data
account.
type. Yes, S object is the data type. It's not integer, it's not string, it's S object. Absolutely.
Okay, got it.
That's it. Now, whatever method name you want to write and say return list. This is the name of the variable. Okay. Instead of list, you could have called it anything. Count. That's it. So I've defined a get method which will display or which will get the value of this entire account list to the Visualforce page, right? But to accommodate multiple records on the Visualforce page, what do we need? We need a table. I cannot just go and say that okay fine call accounts because this is not one single value. It was simple in case of a string. In this string, I simply called it because it's just one value. But in this case, we are talking about multiple records. So what do we need? We need a page block table, the way we did it for standard list controller. So let's go ahead and create a page. Fix v12, v13. Okay. So all that we need to do is we just need to go ahead and create a page block table, and inside the table we are going to call that list of accounts. How do you do that? So controller will be what? Controller equals to, in this case, name of the class, right? Page block title list of accounts. That's page block table value. In this value, we will put accounts because value is the attribute where you define what all records you want to show in the table, right? So in this, no, not this, M1. Yeah. This is where you want me to define M1. This is where that method should return the entire list of records. M1 is the name of method. So we call M1 here in the value. Where a apex column value equals a dot name type industry 1. That's it. Here it is. So table is ready with all the accounts, and this time it's not a standard list controller. This time it's through a custom controller. So all that I've done is I've just defined a variable. I've defined a method which will return the value of that variable. That's it. I've called that method on my page block table. As simple as that. So whatever you want to display, rather, we should understand this way. Whatever we want to display on the page, we'll have to define variables for those, and then we have to define get methods for those. Clear? Make sense? Now there's a small thing that you need to note here. Only the fields that you write in the query, they can be called here. On the Visualforce page, only the fields that you have queried, those fields can be called. Or in other words, whatever fields you want to display on the Visualforce page, you should query all those fields in the code. Okay? Alright. Let's have a quick look at this. I'll connect my laptop to the charger. This page is displaying all the accounts, right? List of accounts, because that's what I've written in the query. Now I'm going to put a where clause here. I'm going to put a criteria here. Okay. Type equals customer channel. Alright. So what we have done, we have put a where criteria here, where type equals customer channel. Now if you go and see the page, you don't have to do anything in the code, in the Visualforce code. Just that the query we have changed. Now your query is returning, now your list of accounts is only returning the records where the type is customer channel. And that's what you get to see on the page. Got it? So now we have better control on your data that you want to display on the page. In the standard list controller, the problem was that it was displaying list of all the records, and you never had a chance to specify your criteria or mention the filters that you wanted to put. Here, it's not the case. Here, you have the control. You are the one who can actually be writing whatever you want to display on the Visualforce page. The way you want, what you want to display, the fields that you want to display, the rows that you want to display. Right. So here I put a criteria. Okay. So let me define one more variable. Okay, so that you guys, in case any one of you missed on anything, the previous example can relate again. So I define one more variable, counts2 equals select name, type, industry, home, account, where type equals customer direct. Okay, so there is another variable. One variable is accounts, which returns only the accounts where the type is customer channel. Other variable is accounts2, which returns the records where the type is customer direct. Okay. Now, if I want to display this on the Visualforce page, this list of records, then again I have to define one more get method. Okay. So you will define one more get method. In this case, again, your return type is going to be public list of account get m2, name of the method, and what is it going to return? It's going to return counts2. Okay. Once you've written this, you should save it. Okay, spelling mistake. Yeah. Save it. Done. All right. Okay. Now go to the Visualforce page. Because it's another list of records, I need one more page block table to display that. Apex page block table value into where b text column b dot name type industry phone. Now let's see this. First table I have list of records where the type is customer channel. Second table I have list of records where the type is customer direct. Only customer direct accounts are being displayed here, right? So we have the option of controlling what we want to display, and we can also filter out the data. Fine. So this is how we use get method. So get method, as I said, can be used for displaying the value on the Visualforce page, and that's what we have been doing. So we have displayed two different lists on the Visualforce page. Now, another is apart from get method, I also talk about set method and action method. Okay. So set method is something which we are going to talk after a few more days. Okay. But before that, I just want to show you an example of an action method. Okay. So in action method, you can have a page reference method. What's a page reference method? What's a page reference method? Public page reference. Put any method name here, whatever you want. So this is the name, and I say return page dot v12. Okay. What do you think this method is gonna do? Anyone? What do you think this method is gonna do? Return page dot v12.
Going to display page 12.
Yes. It's pretty simple. What it's gonna do? It's gonna take you to v12, page number v12, right? So this page reference is the return type in case you want to return to some page. Okay, it's a non-word method obviously, and it's an action method. It's not a get method. So in action method, you don't have to write get keyword here. Okay, so this is an action method. What do I want this action method to do? I want this action method to take reference of a page and take me to another page. In that case, your return type is going to be page reference. Okay, and it will take the page to return page dot v12. Okay, now how are you going to call this method? p1. How are we going to call this method? This method needs to be called This method needs to be called through a command button or a command link because it's an action method. So it will be called through an action button. So you can call it here apex command button. Value can be go to v12. Action will be name of the method. Even. Right. Okay, because it's a command button, it has to be within a form component. So put it text form. Yeah. Click on this, go to V12. See, it takes you to V12. Got it? That button. So that's how a page reference method works. Alright, so if you want to define a button or a link which can take you to some other page, this is how you actually do it. Right? Now, instead of writing return page.v12, if I write return null, then what do you think it will do? When I say return page v12, then it goes to page v12, page number v12. When I say return null, then what do you think it's going to do? So if you send a letter and you don't write an address, then what will happen? The letter
It
comes,
will not return any value.
the letter comes back to you, right? If you have not written a receiver's address, then the courier company is going to take it back to you and say that, see, there is no address on this. So this return null will basically bring you back on the same page. So it will refresh the same page or reload the same page. All right. So it reloads the same page. All right. So in case you want to do a refresh, you can write a return null. If you want to go to another page from a button, you can write the name of that particular page. That's it. Right. So I'll continue to talk further on this page reference thing, and we will use it in a few more examples. All right. So that's something which we'll do tomorrow.